Hi everyone, it's Brittany and welcome back to my channel. So I thought now that it's finally August, I was going to do a little July wrap up just to talk about all the books that I read in July. So the first book that I read is Finding Audrey by Sophie Kinsella. So I initially bought this book last year thinking it was an adult book, and then when I started reading it I actually found out that the main character was 14. So I'm not usually into young adult, so I was like, I'm going to continue reading it anyway, just see where it goes. It was only a short book anyway. And then it just started to become really unrealistic for me. It had nothing to do with the fact that she had a mental illness or anything like that. It was mainly just the fact that at such a young age she had such a mature and grown relationship with Linus, who, even though he was older, it's just unrealistic. Like, I've been 14, I know what 14-year-olds are like, and no one has a relationship like that. Like, as lovely as it is to read something so positive and so happy and so mature, at the same time it just didn't sit well with me, because the whole time I was reading it I was like, this would never happen. And even though, yes, books are supposed to be an escape and something that's not always how reality is, I just couldn't push past that, because everything else was so represented in the way that they wanted it to be realistic, and then they had this relationship that would never happen. So that was one of my main issues with it. Another issue that I had was the mum. I mean, I don't know what every mother is like, but mums aren't that mean. I don't know, like, it just didn't sit well with me, the way that she was so focused and so attentive to Audrey, and then she was just so horrible and so mean and so crazy towards her older brother. It just made no sense how you could have the same person be two completely different ways to their children. And it's not even that she was different, it's that it was too contrasting. Like, the way that it was just was not normal. So that was another thing that took away the reality of the book for me. I ended up giving this book 2 out of 5 stars, because I just, while it was easy to read and I didn't hate the book, there was just so much in it that I was just like, that would never happen, I can't move past this, because it's just, it doesn't sit well. So that's what I thought about Finding Audrey. I wouldn't recommend it, and I probably wouldn't read it again. Even though it was a short book, it's just not something that I enjoyed. The second book that I read was We Need to Talk About Kevin by Lionel Shriver. So I actually started this book around February or March at the beginning of the year, and it took me so long to finish it, mostly because I started it and I got through the first 100 pages and I just really had enough. I was not enjoying it. I found it really overwritten. The uni semester started and I just didn't have time for it. I was like, I can't be bothered. So I just let it go. I kind of just kept it by my bed and just didn't bother with it. And then in the break I was like, I don't like leaving books half read, so I decided to pick it up again and just see what happened. The first 250, 300 pages were pretty hard. They were boring. I just really wanted to get into what was happening with Kevin, but I was hearing so much about the mother, because it's written in a way that it's a series of letters from Kevin's mother to her husband about everything that it was like when Kevin was growing up, and I was just getting really sick of it. I couldn't really connect with Kevin's mother. A lot of the things she was saying I wasn't all that interested in. It didn't start to get really good until Kevin was about 15, 16, and that's when more of the action kind of started happening, things that were really odd and quite scary as well. So it started to get really good around then, and I decided, you know, I'm just going to finish it because I'm starting to really enjoy it, and I am so glad that I did. So I ended up giving it 4 stars. The ending was amazing. I would read it again just for the ending. There's a huge plot twist at the end, something that you really don't expect, and it's just crazy. The ending was everything that I wanted the book to be, which it wasn't. I was being quite generous by giving it 4 stars, but it was literally because I loved the ending so much. So I would recommend this book. Just push through the first half. It is a bit overwritten, but the ending is so worth it. The third book I read was The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. So I've actually read this book already. I read it when I was in high school for English, and I actually strangely really enjoyed it. It was one of my favorite books that I read as a teenager. And it is young adult, but I feel like it's written in a way that adults can read it too and really enjoy it, because it isn't like stereotypical, it isn't really cliche. It's really insightful, it's really eye-opening and quite sad as well. I flew to Melbourne recently and I needed a book to read on the plane, and because it was only a short plane trip there and back, I just wanted something that I felt comfortable with, that I knew that I was going to enjoy, so I just took that with me. It still had an effect on me. It was seriously, it's one of my favorite books. So I gave it 5 stars. It's just something that always brings me to tears by the end of it. It is just so beautifully written. You fall in love with all of the characters. It's really genuine, and I love where it came from. The author, S.E. Hinton, actually wrote it when, I'm pretty sure when she was a teenager in the 60s. It was pretty much like an account of her experiences of gangs in America, and it was just really well done. I feel that it's very tasteful, and it's just really eye-opening. Honestly, I would recommend it to everyone. It's one of my favorite books, and I am really glad that I read it again. The next book that I read is The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. So my sister actually read this book in high school, and I remember as a kid she got it for Christmas one year because she was always saying how much she loved it. So it's been on my to-read list for a really long time. I actually had no idea what it was about when I put it on my to-read list, but I put it on there anyway because I knew that my sister liked it so much. I was at my secondhand bookstore that I go to quite frequently, and they happened to have it. So I picked it up and I read it, and it's just a really short, easy read. I loved it. I gave it 4 stars. It's about a boy named Holden who's 16. He's kind of young adult, but it's one of those books that an adult can read it too, and it's not too cliche, it's not too corny. It's actually probably the opposite, because Holden is constantly talking about how he hates things being phony and being corny. It's kind of one of those books where nothing really happens. It's just his narrative over the course of about 4 days in New York City after he's kicked out of school. And it's just something that is really easy to read. Nothing happens, but it's still really interesting. So I would really recommend it. I'd probably read it again too. The second last book that I read for July was This Is Where It Ends by Marieke Nijkamp. So I was at the bookstore a few weeks ago after work, and I was just looking, which never turns out to be just looking, and I ended up picking this book up. It's again about a high school shooting, just like We Need to Talk About Kevin. And I was really fascinated. Again, it actually is a young adult book, which I say that I don't like, but maybe I do. So I decided to pick it up, and I started reading it on the way home actually. And within a few pages, I realized that it was really similar to Finding Audrey. It was just corny and cliche. I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't read it again. I think I gave it like 3 stars. I started to lose interest towards the end. It was over the course of, I think, 50 minutes. Like the whole book is set over 50 minutes during a school shooting, and you get it from 4 different perspectives of teenagers. So one is the sister of the shooter, the girlfriend of the sister, the girlfriend's twin brother, and then another girl who used to date the shooter. And I don't know, it just got really a little bit complicated in the beginning. I was kind of having to reread a few pages just to see where it was at, what I was reading. I couldn't really understand. I started to get a grasp for it, and then I just wasn't really enjoying it. It was just corny, again, like I said. I was actually really disappointed because I had high hopes for it. I was really excited for it, and then it was just kind of disappointing. I won't get too much into it because, to be honest, it was probably one of my least favorites for the month. And the very last book that I read, which I discussed in my last video, is Before I Fall by Lauren Oliver. I actually was so pleasantly surprised by this book. My dad bought it for me a few months ago. I saw the trailer for the movie and I thought it looked really cool. I love the concept. So it's been sitting on my bookshelf for a little while, and when I finished This Is Where It Ends, I decided to pick it up, and I loved it. At the beginning I was a little bit hesitant. It did seem a little bit corny, a bit stereotypical, especially of like the 4 main characters, which are all teenage girls in America. And I was a little bit apprehensive. I was like, is this gonna be good? But it was amazing. It totally blew me away. I was not expecting it. I loved it so much. Seriously, I would really recommend it to everyone. I think I gave it 5 stars. By the end of it, I felt so empty and so like I had to recover after reading it. I couldn't get into a book straight after because I was just so upset and I was so shocked, and I wanted to read more. I wanted there to be a sequel because I needed to know what happened after the ending. I really enjoyed it. It's one of those books that really makes you think. It makes you think so much about your actions and the actions of the people around you. It's kind of like the movie The Butterfly Effect, where everything plays a part with everything and nothing is just a single action. There's always going to be a reaction. So I just really love books that make you think about things like that and think about the world around you. And I would definitely read this again. I know that it's gonna make me super sad and feel everything all over again, but I really loved it. So that is all the books that I read for July. I am currently reading one of the library books that I discussed in my last video as well. I was hoping to finish it by the time that I was going to make this video, but I've just been really busy and I haven't had a chance. The book that I did start was Lily and the Octopus by Stephen Rowley. I am about 35% through and I'm really enjoying it. It was a little bit odd at first, it wasn't what I expected. But then I soon got a grasp of what was happening and I'm really enjoying it so far. It's really sweet, really cute. I'm prepared for tears. I feel like something bad is going to happen. But I'm still enjoying it and I can't wait to review it in my next video. I just want to say a quick thank you again to everyone who has subscribed and commented and liked my videos. I appreciate it more than you know. I have been enjoying so much making these videos for everyone and I hope to continue doing so. I'll see you in my next video. Bye!